right, rolling. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Lauren Khalil. We are officially through the semifinals, and now, next stop, Fort Worth, Texas, and the 2024 CrossFit Games. How's everybody doing today?
Excellent.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's what we're going to get to on the show. We're going to have our good friend Barclay Dale stop by to talk about the Rogue Invitational qualifying system, give us some clarity, what he likes, things that he would change about that, go through our headlines. And then later on in the show, we are going to grade the semifinals. So that should be a lot of fun as we take a look back on everything that was good, some of the stuff that maybe wasn't so good, some of the stuff that we would improve, and some of the stuff that we actually really liked. So that should be a good conversation. But first, we want to thank our sponsor for today, and that is Thirdsy. Thirdsy is a collagen protein powder that you drink before you go to bed. It has been an absolute godsend for me. It has GABA, L-theanine, all kinds of great ingredients in it that help you calm your central nervous system, get better, deeper sleep. I'm not in the 14-hour category, but I didn't do the 5 a.m. Today's the rest day. Got more than 6 hours of solid, really good deep sleep. Felt good waking up, like I felt recharged. So this stuff has been, like I said, it's a game changer. It allows me to wake up early, feel pretty good, go work out. Do I need more sleep? Yes. But the sleep I am getting is a lot more quality. I fall asleep faster. I stay asleep more. I get better deep sleep. And it has been overall a win for me. You can go to thirdsy.com, use our code TEF. You will save 20%, or you just scan the QR code right down there. It takes you right there. Gets yourself just the best PM recovery collagen protein on the market.
Even for someone who I get enough sleep. Like there are nights where I literally can't wind down. My mind's going nuts. And this is a preview for later on in the show, but spent an entire day chainsawing and pole sawing, a palm tree to trim it. And, I was still vibrating from that afterwards and put me right out. Definitely needed in that case.
Well, Thirdsy.com.
I didn't get 14 hours last night, but I got 9, Sean, and they were 9 really good hours. I never wake up in the middle of the night anymore. The dogs, they know when I take my Thirdsy and I'm out.
Not my dogs. Not my dogs. They ain't 4 a.m.
Maybe
4
you gotta give them some Thirdsy. Is it
4
dog
a.m.
approved?
I could just hear Spike at the door, just breathing heavy, just staring at me. 4 a.m. Let's eat. All right, come on, bro. Let's do it. So yeah, they do not help the sleep. So Thirdsy.com, TEF, that's the code. Save 20%. Okay, let's get into the headlines for today. First thing, this was something that CrossFit made an announcement on. I'll read you the press release. This is CrossFit Medical Society ushers in a new era of healthcare. Pivotal organization within the CrossFit community will educate healthcare professionals, empower members, and create opportunities for affiliates to become health homes. That's in quotes. So reading from the first paragraph, CrossFit LLC today announced the launch of the CrossFit Medical Society, CFMS. The CFMS, which is membership-based and will operate as an independent entity in partnership with CrossFit LLC, will serve as a pivotal organization within the CrossFit community by mobilizing a group of healthcare professionals who understand the power of using CrossFit to optimize health and prevent and reverse sickness. The CFMS's primary focus will be on educating healthcare professionals on the efficacy of CrossFit, empowering members to take greater control over their health, and creating opportunities for CrossFit affiliates to become healthcare homes for members. The CFMS is operated by Dr. Tom McCoy, who is board certified in family medicine and obesity medicine, and Jennifer Pishko, who holds a master's degree in nutrition education and is co-founder and director of operations and education for McCoy Medical. McCoy Medical uses a lifestyle concepts approach with CrossFit as a foundational pillar for many patients. In addition, McCoy has established 2 clinics within CrossFit affiliates. So this, I think, is a great thing. Anytime you're trying to get people healthier, more fit, fantastic. And we were talking just a little bit about this before. And Tommy, this sort of feels like a rebrand of CrossFit Health.
Or just like another evolution of it, right?
Right.
Because CrossFit Health was, I guess, in its early stages when we still worked for CrossFit, and the initial idea was like, hey, let's bring healthcare professionals into the fold
Mhm.
here, help them better understand what it is we do and how this is such a potent um, uh, weapon against all the ailments of chronic disease, and this kind of like pills first, prescriptions first type.
Right.
What's the word for it? This I don't want to
Remedy.
call it it is its own ailment in how it was
Sure.
applied.
It's
So
masking
how do we
symptoms, not fixing the problem.
yes, and how do we start to turn the tide on that? Given what we know about how powerful CrossFit is
Sure.
um, the it got to a point where they were, sounds weird, indoctrinating doctors into the ways of CrossFit, right? There was the doctors club that they had of people
Mhm.
that would come to the office and have meetings and share ideas and stuff like that. But I think at times it was like, all right, well, what's the next step, right? How does this start to get put into practice maybe a little bit more? And I know there were ideas and attempts and stuff to kind of take that next step. But I always go back to, remember the underpants gnomes from
Yeah.
from South Park. It was like step 1, collect. Step
Mhm.
2 was like question. Step 3 is
Profit.
profit. It's like, what's that step 2? This seems like it could be a good, a valuable step 2, right? You have a
Mhm.
couple of doctors who have built practices adjacent to CrossFit affiliates, and you start to try and maybe build a practical medical network of people that are actually, boots on the ground, trying to shift how treatment is done in conjunction with CrossFit affiliates. So
Yeah.
it remains to be seen how this can, gain momentum and build legs to further forward this, and or if there's pushback or whatever it may be. I'm sure there will be from mainstream medical societies, but again, we know what goes on inside of CrossFit affiliates. We know the magic that happens there and the benefit that it can have to the overall health of our society. And hopefully, this is a spark that kind of leverages that better.
Yeah. So anyway, if you missed that, that was an announcement that came out of CrossFit. Okay, next thing, I got some injury updates, and we will start with Katrin Davidsdottir shared this on Instagram. Went in very early on Thursday morning. Obviously, this was last week. We're recording this on June 6th. This was, last Thursday. Went in very early on Thursday morning for a, quote, standalone ALIF on L5S1, which was one below the one that I had surgery on, which means the surgeons opened me up from the front below my belly button. That way they could get the best access to the disc and could also leave my back muscles untouched. I was out of surgery and awake again by 11 a.m. And that same afternoon, I was already walking the hallways and able to do steps. But because of the anterior approach, the surgeons wanted to keep me overnight at the hospital, and I got to come home on Friday. Awesome. Then she said she had a bad day on Saturday. Probably be expected, just part of the process. But she hopes that she's over the hardest part. It feels so good to know that one day I'm one day one day at a time. I am one step closer to a healthy, strong back. So good. I'm glad Katrin finally got that taken care of. I had a chance to talk to her, and she was talking about just how I've never doubted. Like, Katrin Davidsdottir is probably mentally and physically one of the toughest athletes there. And when she can't continue to work through something, it's a big deal. So glad that she got this healed. I had a similar surgery in 2010, I think,
Mm-hmm.
2011, maybe it's 2010. Yeah, it was L4, L5 microdiscectomy. I had a badly herniated disc, and that pain, if you've ever had it, that went down to the nerve pain, is just, it's the worst because there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there's no pills, there's no nothing. So I think that she will definitely benefit from that. And it's not like, this is what they told me, and I'm nowhere near the athlete that Katrin Davidsdottir was even 14 years ago. It's like you're prehab. They don't. Doctors that do this type of thing aren't used to seeing people like you in there because it's usually because it's someone who is obese who bent over and herniated a disc tying a shoe or picked up their kid wrong or something like that. It's like, you're going to be fine. And I'm glad I did it. I've been pain free ever since. And I think Katrin will be just fine. Looking forward to seeing her back on the competition floor. So congratulations, Katrin. Glad you're on the mend.
I
Other
remember you
one.
saying that. I was to say,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
remember you saying the pain relief was almost instant too,
Oh my
right?
God.
Like,
It was, yes, it was, I'll never forget waking up because my pain got so bad that I couldn't sit. I could barely
Ugh.
sleep. It was awful. I was like, just give me the surgery. And I remember waking up and I just opened my eyes and I just felt there was no pain. Now, granted, I was pumped full of drugs too at the same time, but there was no nerve pain. My right leg was a little numb, and I said, "Hey, my thigh's a little numb." They go, "Yeah, we don't know what causes that. It just seems to happen with these surgeries." I was like, Okay. And it got better, obviously. But yeah, it was
Awesome,
instantaneous.
thanks.
And I hope, yeah, right. And I was like, okay, I won't be concerned then. But hopefully Katrin has the same relief. And then the other one we wanted to get you
Well,
guys updated. Go ahead, Lauren.
no, just on Instagram, she was posting the other day and talking to the camera, and it just amazes me that you can have back surgery and then be walking up and about just a
Dude,
couple days later. And she sounded great, and like
yeah.
it's just mind blowing to me.
Well, Pat Sherwood, our good friend Pat, he had like full hip replacement surgery and it was an outpatient thing. I'm like, how is that an outpatient
What?
thing now?
yeah,
Yeah.
they
And
want you
Gary
they want you
Pritchett, the
moving.
strongman, he just had it too. And he
They want
was like
you
walking out.
they want you immediately moving, because they want activity and blood flow. They don't
Mhm.
want the basically that joint to pretty much die, right? I mean, what ACLs, they want you walking. It's outpatient. They want you
Yeah.
walking immediately. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's pretty.
Round of applause to doctors and science. Nice job, guys. Glad Katrin's on the mend. All right, other one we'll get to is Bill Leahy. He, for those of you that don't know, I'll call the post up here. He had a full tear in his Achilles.
Full
A
tear. Full
full
tear.
tear,
Repeat it.
and
Full.
continued to box jump after he suffered it,
I don't
which
understand.
no idea how
Super
adrenaline's a hell of
human.
a thing, but that's like, I don't know how you did that.
Hmm.
But he had this post on social media, and he wrote, I approached the 30-inch box to complete the final set of 10 box jump overs before running to the finish line. I was on pace to set an event record and win my heat. The comeback was being mounted, and this event had a huge part in that. As I completed my 4th box jump over and stepped down, I went to jump for my 5th. Upon jumping, I thought I kicked my judge behind me. I landed on the box using my hands to step off. The moment of looking behind me and seeing no judge seemed to last forever. I knew I had torn my Achilles. I knew I had 6 reps left because you got a no rep. I knew I wouldn't set an event record. I knew my weekend was over. I also knew that I was not going to quit. I proceeded to complete 7 more box jump overs and waddle across the finish line with a torn Achilles. So he had surgery on it.
I
Surgery,
don't even know.
well, it's going to be a long recovery, but all the best to Will Leahy. But my God.
Oh,
The human body is truly incredible because to me, that's an injury that you don't, not only do you not continue to jump, but you do not walk away from. You do an army crawl off the floor. You have
Yeah,
somebody pick
that's
you up. But like,
round of
damn.
applause to Bill
That,
Leahy for being one of the toughest SOBs out there. Dang.
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, we talked about it the week of, like, just a tough pill to swallow, in terms of, like, you're in the driver's seat, like you said, for that comeback. You're in the midst of a workout that is going to help push you forward, and
Mhm.
given what happened last year and him trying to break through this year, it sound I don't want to be insensitive, but it sounds like a bigger setback than the miss was last year. But hopefully it's just the setup for a bigger comeback on
Yeah.
the front end.
Well, I'll a lot of people have been talking about watching out for this kid, and the first one I heard was Adrian Bosman, because they had
Yeah,
him
and him,
test some workouts, and even what his performance a few years back in semifinals, Boz was like, that kid's got some fitness.
Yeah, Dan Bailey too, because he did it with
Mhm.
him, and I did some testing with him, and they were both like, "This guy's got, it."
All right, next headline we want to talk about, final headline, is something that came out earlier this week, and that is the new Rogue qualifying system that they are going to be using to get people to the Rogue Invitational. They made it very clear when this was released that this is still in sort of the beta phase, that they're looking for feedback. And we could break it down for you, but we said, hey, let's find a smart person to do that instead of us doing that. So we went to one of the smartest people we know, Barclay Dale, and he's joining us now. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Now that I got my internet gremlins figured out, we wanted to bring you on because we've worked with you at semifinals. People who follow you on social media know that you have a knack for statistics and things like that. So wanted to just get your initial thoughts on the Rogue ranking system. And first question is, when this came out, what do you like about it?
The first thing that came that I noticed about it was the depreciation in weight for the point system. So in summary, the Rogue qualifying system takes 6 years of data. It goes from the current year and 5 years back, and it allocates points based off of your finishing place within those competitions. Those competitions being CrossFit Open, CrossFit quarterfinals, CrossFit Games, and the Rogue Invitational. And for the current year, you get 100% of the points. Each year farther back, you get 16% less than that. So 1/6, because there's 6 years of data. That's the main thing that I really like about it, is the depreciation in value, depreciation in weight for those competitions, because that's one thing that's really missing from the CrossFit. That is the depreciation in value. Something that happened 2 years ago is weighted the same as the most recent competition in that system.
Got it.
Yeah.
Then okay, go ahead, Tommy.
I was just say, Barclay, you're a man of science and data. And I know you've done some iterations of things within the stats world, including like predictive stats. Is there anything off the top of your head that you're like, I wish they would have included this, or maybe something that, as they start to refine this, because it is in beta, something that you're like, all right, here's a couple of ways that you can kind of fine tune this?
I think that the omission of the CrossFit semifinals makes sense from I don't want to use this word, but I'll say a fear standpoint, making sure that you weight the different semifinals based off of the strength of their field appropriately. Very difficult to do. So I understand the omission of semifinals if that was the reason that they omitted it, but it does make sense that it would be included if we're including the Open and the quarterfinals and the games. There's 4 stages of the CrossFit season, and we're including 1, 2, and 4, but we're not including 3.
All right, where do you, other than that, what are the things that you looked at? We talked about what you liked. What are the things you're saying, I don't know if I'm wild about that, or it's sort of the same question as Tommy asked, but just to kind of go into more depth, I guess.
Their phrasing on the header summary of the qualifying system says, the event remains an invitational, and we reserve the right to invite anyone we choose to compete. The next line is, historically, we have selected a minimum of 10 athletes using this method. So that's what confuses me, is really just the word this, because in the English language, when you use the word this, you're referring to the most recent thing that's been stated. And the most recent thing that's been stated was that it's an invitational and we choose anyone that we want to compete. So but I wouldn't really consider choosing an athlete to compete at the invitational a method. I would consider it as a reference to the qualifying system. So if they're saying that they've selected a minimum of 10 athletes using this method historically, then why is the qualifying system a beta? It's kind of contradictory there. It's like it either has existed and you've used it historically to invite 10 athletes, or this is completely new, it's in beta, and you have not used this system to invite a minimum of 10 athletes using this method. So there's a little bit of contradictory statements. It could just be semantics and I'm thinking too much into it. But that's what really didn't make sense to me, is if you're going to use this system to qualify people and you have used it in the past, then we've seen some things that haven't lined up. in terms of who they've invited to the competition, but they've given themselves a catch-all or a bailout with that being an invitational. So it doesn't matter that that person should have qualified under this system, because we can invite whoever the heck we want. And if that's the case, then why do you even have the system in the first place? That's really my main thing. Is it doesn't really need to exist other than to give themselves being Rogue, some sort of backing as to why they may invite someone in the future for their Rogue Invitational. But if they had just said this is an invitational and we can invite whoever we want, and it's their party and they can invite whoever they want, then just say that. It makes no difference to me.
Yeah, I think let me just offer some thoughts on that, because the way I have understood the way that this happens is they just look at the games rankings where you finish at the games, and if you were top 15, you got in, and then they reserve the right to invite whoever they want, and then they had the queue to qualify people there. So it's my understanding that now this system gives a very sort of concrete way to go through. It's not necessarily who finished where at the games. That plays into it, but they're now using that system as opposed to just looking at the games leaderboard.
It does play into it, but you'd actually be surprised. This goes back to their second bullet point of the historically, we have selected a minimum of 10 athletes using this method. Let's say that we have an athlete that has just missed out on the games for 5 years straight. They've gotten 21st in the Open and quarterfinals, never decided to do the Rogue Invitational. According to their system, only awarding points to the top 20 in each of these different competitions, this athlete would have 0 points at this point in time, because in this hypothetical, they were 21st place. Okay. 21st place, everything 0 points. They qualify for the games, they win the games. Amazing feat. You definitely drug test them. Let's say they pass. 1,000 points for winning the games. 100 points for winning the games. 1,000 points for also participating in the games and getting first place. 1,100 points does not even put you in the top 20 on the active leaderboard. So that's why it goes back to.
Isn't that trying to? Sorry to interrupt, but isn't that trying to find like a really, really rare exception to something that is so impossible that?
Absolutely, but it exists. Okay. So in that scenario, if you're going to say that you're going to take 10 people in the qualifying system minimum, and then 5 from the queue minimum, that leaves you 5 spots to invite whoever you want, or for them to invite whoever they want. Obviously, that game's champ would go in that spot, but then you've got people from theoretically 11th to, let's say, 21st place. You only got 4 spots to allocate for those people, or to invite whoever you want. So if that's the case, it's like the qualifying system is great. It's not a rating system. It's different than the worldwide rating system, and that's good. But because they're using this, it's going to create a little bit more confusion as to how athletes made it to the Invitational. I mean, think back to 2019. Pat Vellner didn't even know how he qualified for the CrossFit Games that year, because there were so many different ways to qualify for the CrossFit Games.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm curious, it seems like, and this is just my initial observation, that this is an attempt to just kind of put all the cards out on the table. Like, hey, this is our process, so people can see it. I think that's why the beta still exists on it, because increasing calls for transparency, developing of multiple systems in the ecosystem I think is important too. It just seems like this is like hey, let's open the kimono. This is what's going on. We're going to give everybody a chance to look at it, and maybe even get some conversations going like this to maybe crowdsource and generate ideas around how we can make it better. Because at least from this, the broadcast standpoint at Rogue last year, and the updated version of the Invitational, it seems like Rogue has kind of set themselves up to like slowly innovate in the sport with kind of unique ideas. And maybe that to me seems where this kind of fills in. Like, hey, if we can generate a pretty good ranking system that works, like, who's to say like other people can't use it, right?
Right. I mean, the ranking system in general is a great addition, and the transparency that comes along with that is a great addition. I think my favorite part about the page that Sean had pulled up, the Invitational qualifying system on Rogue's website, is at the bottom is, please let us know anything that you see that looks off. So myself, other people that I know of have already contacted Rogue and saying, here's like, I've already broken down all of the points and replicated this leaderboard on my own to see where these points are allocated. And I told them, Daniel Brandon should have 4,819 points. It appears that the 2020 Rogue Invitational was not incorporated completely into this system. And they responded, thank you. Like, good point. Like, we'll look into it and get back to you. And they did. If you look at Danielle Brandon's total points at the moment, she has 4,819. So they're not only requesting feedback, but they're actually utilizing and working off of that feedback, which is great.
Would this be considered an evolution of the worldwide ranking system, or is this something that, like, the system is so separate that we shouldn't even be treating them the same? I'm not the numbers person. This is why Barclay is here. But when I look at both of them, I kind of like do one of these and think, well, why do we have two systems? I know they're used for different things, but I'm just curious.
I don't think that this is meant to replace the worldwide rating system. I don't think it should replace the worldwide rating system. I think something else should replace the worldwide rating system, or the worldwide rating system should continue to pivot. But I don't think that this is the answer. When I put out my breakdown of points for this, because right now the Rogue website just has the sum of the points according to the competition, whereas I've broken it out by year. I had people responding to it saying, where is Guillaume Briand? He's not on here. Why isn't he on here? He went to the games. And said, well, because only the top 20 get points at the games, so he's not on there. They said, well, why is Victor Hoffer on there instead? I said, because the Rogue Invitational is only 20 athletes. So anyone that goes to the Rogue Invitational is guaranteed points. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of limitations in terms of who's getting allocated points in this system that I think it's very limiting in terms of ranking worldwide.
Yeah, I think the one thing though is sorry, Tom. The one thing that, just to piggyback off Lauren's question, if you were going to try to take something from this system that Rogue is doing and apply it to the worldwide ranking system, maybe it's that looking back 5 years and the regression that to me, that made, when I looked at it, I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool.
Yes.
And I think that is something that could be incorporated into the worldwide ranking system.
The depreciation and point allocation is definitely something that should be considered in the worldwide ranking system, because something that happened 2 years ago is far less relevant to the current state of the sport of CrossFit than the most recent competition. That athlete should still get their points for what they did at that time, but we've had theoretically 23 months of competition since that point that should be weighted far more than what we had in the past.
Yeah, that's always an interesting conundrum, if you will, how to account for gaps in performance where, say, an athlete takes an off year, or more recently, especially with the top women in the sport, they decide to have kids, right? Like, and how do you factor that into what their overall performance has been, is going to be, what may it look like? How does it affect fields moving forward if we're thinking about worldwide ranking system? Because I think everyone and their mother could expect that, like, hey, when Tia came back from her kid, like, she was going to be pretty good almost immediately, right? Like, how do you account for the base of what she's built behind her accordingly and allow that to accurately impact the numbers that are currently going on with that gap year? So,
and Rogue did a great job with that, with their exception rule. It does take a little bit you really got to sit, read it again, try and understand, then read it a third time to really understand what's actually happening. But the implementation that they've used with their exception rule, which is a look back for the particular competition, look back 3 years, totaling all those points and taking a 15% depreciation in that, so it's only weighted 85% of those points. I think it's a great move for what Rogue is trying to do. Rogue is not trying to give a perspective on what the sport of CrossFit looks like right now, because if that were the case, Tia would be ranked lower given her not competing in semifinals and the games last year. Now she'd obviously get points back immediately from getting second at Rogue in 2023, but she would have that gap in some sort of worldwide ranking system. For this as a qualifying system, that exceptions rule that Rogue has implemented is a great addition.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So Barclay, if people want to follow you and benefit from your wealth of knowledge and the great hard work that you were doing, where can they find you?
On Instagram, Barclay.Dale. I know that we pronounce it Barclay, but it's actually spelled Barclay, Barclay. I got everything going on there. I put most of my stuff, if not all of it, in my link tree because this stuff is meant to be shared. It's not meant for me. You can check out anything you want there, and you can hit me up if you have any questions on analysis that you would like done for yourself.
I have one last question. When you dream, do you dream in Excel spreadsheets?
I wish I did. I can't remember any of my dreams, which is really unfortunate. But I wish I did.
I take pride in my Excel skills. I'm pretty good. But I felt like I was like Barclay had his spreadsheet going next to me, and I felt like I was like, oh, I am but the student, and I am sitting next to the master. This is it was impressive stuff. And Barclay did a great job at the Syndicate Crown as a stage manager and
West Coast Classic.
Really appreciate your efforts, man.
I know 0 codes in Excel. I know how to insert words and numbers, but I don't know how to make them do anything fancy.
Barclay and I, we nerded out over the count if. I was like, I know count if. I think I scored a few. I've scored a few Excel points with Barclay on that one, so it was good.
Yeah, count if's a good one for sure.
Yeah, it is awesome. Listen, man, thanks so much for doing this. And again, follow if you don't follow Barclay on Instagram, Barclay.Dale. He's got great stuff there. Really, if you're like a stats nerd, this is the guy to follow. So, thanks for taking the time to do this, man. Appreciate the clarity.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Big thanks to Barclay Dale for stopping by. Always love talking to that kid. I can't thank him enough for all the hard work he did. I know for you, Lauren, at the West Coast Classic, he was on my right the entire time at the Syndicate Crown, writing notes. And at one point, it's funny. He wrote Tia almost had she missed the event record by like 2 seconds. And I think it was event 2, maybe. Anyway, the one Laura Horvath has it on, and he wrote it. He thought that she was going to get the event record, and crumpled it up, and then she crossed. And I'm like pointing to the paper. I'm like, and he's frantically looking for his paper because I wanted that time to let people know how close it was. He found it and gave it to me. And he was giving Adrian some great stats. People don't understand the importance of just that spotter. Like he was doing really 3 roles: stage manager, spotter, kind of like a in-booth producer too. So really appreciate his.
He did everything. And it's not only great to have somebody so intelligent, but also somebody that's so easy to work with, so kind, so helpful. Like he fits all of those buckets of a really good team member. So go follow him. He's
give that guy some love. Okay. Final thing before we get into our grades, as you know, we have partnered up with Barbells for Bullies to try to get some dogs adopted here. Here's our dog of the week, Sloppy Joe. Sloppy Joe. He's made. He's dopey. He loves car rides. He's a cuddle bug. Couch potato, low energy, dog friendly, cat friendly. This seems like the perfect pet. He is in he's in Minnesota. So it's at Rescue Crew MN. He's been looking for his family for a while. Barbells for Bullies met him when they had their competition last August at Timberwolf Fitness. Shout out to them. And we don't really know why this sweet boy hasn't been able to seal the deal. He is sweet, wiggly, goofy, and just wants to love. Low-key couch potato. He wants belly rubs, snacks, and afternoons filled with lounging in the sun. Man, I'd go adopt this guy.
Yeah,
now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Little description there. Dopey dude with a huge heart full of love to give. There he is on his bed.
Oh.
So if you're interested in Sloppy Joe, if you're interested in Sloppy Joe, go to Barbells for Bullies, or you can go to at Rescue Crew WM. Okay. And even if you're not in the Minnesota area, Barbells for Bullies does a good job of facilitating out-of-state adoptions, and they can maybe help you out if you want to get Sloppy Joe is part of your family. That just looks like a good dog right there, man.
He is adorable. Man,
I know, right? Like you see these. This is why I cannot go to dog adoption events because it is almost guaranteed that
no.
home. I can't do it. I have three.
I will share on Instagram all that I
Mm-hmm.
can, but you will not see me in person because I will end up with an unhealthy amount of dogs in my house.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's like if I just could do whatever I wanted to, I would just start like a dog rescue on my property. Just have like dogs hanging out. Like we just do a dog rescue, and I just go hang out with the dogs all day and take care of them and try to get them forever home. So, and if you haven't already, follow Barbells for Bullies because they're a great organization. Lindsay and Alex do fantastic work. They put on a lot of fun events. And if you'd want to have a Barbells for Bullies event at your gym, they can do that. Contact them, let them know what you'd like to do. They do like Helens for Hounds. They do things like that. They have the Run Your Balls Off thing going on as well. They do a lot of really good work. So follow Barbells for Bullies and just go adopt a dog. All right, adopt, don't shop. Help these organizations.